Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club. If you're at all interested in anything we talk about in this episode, go ahead and check out the description down below, or if you even just want to know more about us, click on the links below. Now on to the episode.
Yes, boys, Coffee Experts Club. Good to see you guys again. How are things?
Good.
It's a good day.
Look at Drew.
It is. It's especially good when both Aaron and Drew are stateside.
It's very rare. Very rarely are we all here.
I was just going to say, look how brooding Drew looks in his hood today. He looks like Darth Vader. I love it. He's just like, this is my mood before Thanksgiving.
I can't handle the cold like you guys handle the cold. I'm inside. I'm inside a building and I'm bundled up.
I love it. I will say though, since I moved my office down to the basement, I do get pretty cold during the day. It gets chilly down here.
Yeah. Understandable.
I love it. Well, hey, I thought we could tackle today, guys. I just got back from Belize late last night. And I think something pretty rare, obviously we're helping manage coffee shops all over the US and helping run operations and helping specifically around like things with finance, things with running their management team, things with controlling their logistics. But I think one of the biggest things that we've got to bring to this show that makes it unique and different is us managing remotely this business down in Belize. Drew and I owning these 3 coffee shops down there, someplace 8 hours away. And a lot of times we're talking about how we're doing that on the front end, right? Like these are the things you need to organize. These are the things you need to do. These are the things you need to put into place. But we don't talk about like the before and afters, right? So I just got back from Belize because we had things kind of break loose and go a little sideways. And I think that it would be good for us just to kind of share some stories, share some things. And then for those of you who are listeners to ask yourself, how would you have handled these things? Because I think it's easy when it's right here in your backyard to really dive in deep and get behind the scenes and like do all the things because this has always been your business. But you can't do that quite as easily when something's 8 hours away. And Drew's been stuck here in the States due to his passport needing to be renewed. And so that you just can't hurry that, especially in the middle of a government shutdown. So we had to switch up some things. So I'd love to talk about that episode.
Fun times in Belize.
I think one thing that we really benefit from in our business is having vastly different skill sets. We have some overlap, but we don't necessarily enjoy doing the things that the other enjoys doing. And from that, we've had a lot of really cohesive working sessions and really been able to identify strengths in different people on our team because I'm good at one thing, you're good at one thing. Not just one, various things. But in that, I can see these XYZ skills I have, I can kind of find in the people around me. And same thing with you. And so we've been able to kind of branch our skill sets out around us based on what we're good at. And, our team has been, thank God for our team. Thank God for the people we have working with us. Because without them, the last 3 years would have been a whole different story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know, Ben, something that you always advocate for is like, how do you get from behind the bar, and maybe we just frame it up with that a little bit at the beginning. You want to give them your pitch on like, how do you get from behind the bar? How do you do those things?
Yeah. I mean, if you like being on bar, more power to you. But I mean, if you want to grow your company, that's not the place for you. So, really what you should, especially as an owner, what you should be working towards is getting off that bar as fast as possible. And really the only way to do that is, to Drew's point, having a good team, building a good team, training a good team, leading a good team. You of course have to start at the bar. It's your company. You're your first employee, but like one of your goals should be getting off that as quickly as possible so you can just use that raw time in the day to growing your business. And the only way you can do that is finding that team and pouring into at least 1 or 2 of those initial employees, those first day employees. Just say, hey, I want to make this thing big. I'm going to lead you as best as I can, and I need you to lead this bar while I'm not here.
Yeah. I think, Drew talks a lot about delegation. I think that's super important, and delegation isn't you schlepping your duties on somebody else. Delegation is how do we get the best ROI on your time? You as the owner, you can do things nobody else can in your business. But there are a lot of people that can do a lot of the things of your business if you'll just delegate those things down, And I remember, Ben, when we were going to be acquired, when we were talking to BlackRock for roasters, and then there was another entity that was on the field. And I think one of the things that really stuck out to me was between those two, right? You've got, roasters is this entity, 16 coffee shops, a roastery. And then you have 2 players that come to the field and say, hey, I want to acquire you. Well, BlackRock had, I think at the time, something like 180 doors or something like that, like 180 shops, And this other entity that was wanting to acquire roasters had 5. and had started at the same time Roasters had, right? So Wes, from 2009 until he exited around 2021, had grown it to 16 stores, right? This other entity that wanted to acquire him opened the same time, 2009, and had grown to 5, right? So I think that there's a miss. There are all different kinds of coffee shops out there. But I remember thinking to myself, wait a minute. So this entity that was only able to grow to 5 in the same amount of years as Wes wants to buy 16. You haven't even been able to run 16 yourself. And you're going to come and tell us how we're going to run our 16 when you've only been managing your 5. And it was just such a stark contrast. And I think right now, if you're listening to this and you have one shop, or you're dreaming about starting a shop, or you're trying to get out of one shop into 2 shops, this is my encouragement to you: is think about the ROI on your time. What's the return on the investment of your time? And get into the functions that only you can do and hand down things that anybody can do. And the bar and customer facing things and ordering inventory and organizing, all the different parts of your shop and how things come and go and move and scheduling, all that stuff. Anybody can do that. Teach them to do that stuff, and you ascend up into things that only you can do. So this last week, I was traveling home from an account from a different client's event, and we caught wind that we had a couple of baristas quit at the same time. Now, we were already traveling low census at this store where they quit, and we were down to just the final like 3 employees or something crazy. And Drew contacted me and he said, hey, I think we're gonna have to start closing early. And I'm like, bro, we cannot start closing early coming into like high season. Like, this is high season in Belize. If you start demonstrating irregularity in your hours, that's like the first thing that puts you down. People don't know when they can depend on you. They stop coming. But she's like, I don't know what else we can do. So I contacted my daughter Joy, and I'm like, hey, will you travel down to Belize with me, and will you help me support this thing? Will you come and, maybe just help out around the shop? Like, she's a barista. She's been a barista for years. Help out around the shop so we can offset some of the other employees from the other shop that's right, on the other side of the island. And then that way we can hold hours. So that's what we did. We went down there. But what I can't do is jump behind the bar. Like, that's not the end of the business, friend. That's Drew's end of the business. What I can't do is fix machines. Like, that's Drew's end of the business. That's not my end of the business. And so it was great to be able to go down there, though, and just support the team with the things I could do. So what I do a lot of is like the people side of the business when it comes to HR, like talking things through with people, meeting with people, making sure people are well supported, putting new systems in place that we can offset load off of them if they're feeling overwhelmed, and then coming alongside of them and creating solutions for them for better workflows. And so that's a lot of what I did this last week or so being in town, was getting involved where I could get in town, and the simple things, right? Yeah, sure, I can go drop deposits for you. That'll take some stress off. Of course, I can go get cash for you. Like, no problem. I can get change for you for the weekend. Easy. Sure, I can give rides to a couple of the people that need some extra rides. You've been having to, carry some extra slack because in the island there's distance and a lot of them walk, So like, sure, I can help with that. Like, so getting involved where I can, but I couldn't do a lot of what Drew does. But Drew was stuck here and couldn't go, And so we had to really rely on the systems that we had to be able to help with the lift. But you're muted, Drew. Drew, you're muted.
Thank God for your soft skills, because I put the screws to people. Over the last whatever amount of years I've been doing this, I've worked with baristas, I've worked with closers all the way up to managers and regional managers, and there's a huge difference, in the mindset that people bring when they approach the certain types of work. And I, as one of their leaders, have kind of been conditioned in a certain way. And so some of my soft skills I could use work on. I can be on bar, I can fix machines, I can work shifts, I can be a cheerleader, but I think that it's hard to quantify the benefit of some of those conversations that you can have with people when they're at their wit's end. And I'm still there like, hey, you need to do X, Y, Z. I still expect to have my inventory processed and my invoices on time, and we can't be running out of fruits. We can't be posting our schedule late. And that's me. I'm pushing people on that side, but there is a whole nother side to these managers who work, 40 to 50 hours a week when we call on them to. And it's amazing, and I'm super grateful. But I think for me personally, it can be kind of hard to switch between being sensitive and listening and encouraging, and then also saying, why were you late? Why was your schedule late? Why haven't you posted this? And so it's a really good balancing act, I think, between what you went down there and did, which provides a lot of support, and it puts more air under their wings so that they can work a little bit harder, because we do appreciate them, and it doesn't always show when I'm getting on them about things.
I will say cheers to you guys for actually even doing something about it. I think that's something we should probably point out too, for a lot of people. I know a lot of coffee shops around here, a lot of owners would just say, I guess we're just going to close early, or I guess, we're not going to be open today, or I guess we're just not going to sell coffee. And to your point, Aaron, that's a lot of those mom and pop shops that show up. And then you're like, 6 months later, you're like, where'd that coffee shop? It's gone. Because a lot of those business owners, I don't think, realize that you have to be consistent with your customers, like you said. And it does require you as the owner, like, the buck stops here. Like, do you want to make money or not? And if you do, then you are going to have to make those decisions that are going to be difficult. You got to drop of a hat, fly out somewhere, go get something, relieve a shift. Like, that's all stuff that you have to do. Hopefully, like Drew's been talking about for, ever on this podcast, you've built a team that's loyal, that's willing to work hard, that's all in on the business and has good culture. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that, it comes down to you. Nobody's going to keep your business open for you if you're not doing it.
I think that also I would say be willing to be agile. Like, I think that's another cool thing that I feel like we've seen in these managers down in Belize that we've been pouring into these last few years. Because all these managers, that's the other crazy thing, is all these managers have been with us since the beginning. These were all our first hires for the first location that we've raised up internally, and given them sets of skills and things that they can do. But I think too, we shifted while I was down there to, hey, this load feels really heavy on one store and really light in the other store. I think we should probably shift the load. Why don't we move away from a per location management style? And this was actually Drew's idea, and I thought it was great because it worked out really well for us, was why don't we move to one of the managers that's going to handle all the people for both locations and one of the managers that's going to handle all the systems for both locations. And that way we can begin to kind of shoulder the load differently at a time when one of the locations is great. It has great staff, is doing really well, but the other store is really hurting, when it comes to staff. And how can I spread the load a bit different? And what if we shared teams? What if both teams actually worked both locations and the two managers shared the load a little bit different? And then we still keep the assistant managers installed in both locations. So there's still that steady presence in both locations with assistants, but we actually allow our top leaders to play to their strengths. One of our top leaders is really great with people. The other one is really great with systems. And they both could probably use work on the other thing, right? So why don't we therefore shift the load a little bit different and be a little bit more agile and not be so stiff in the way that we think this thing has to go, but instead ask ourselves, how could we be just a little bit more just a little different the way we think things have to go.
That's so funny you mentioned that, because you're taking the playbook right out of one of our other clients. So we serve a lot of clients here at Collab team. One of our other clients is in the bar industry, and they just made that move about, I'd say, a month ago or so. They hired on what they call them front of house manager and a back of house manager. And for all locations, they have their front of house manager who manages the employees, the customer facing aspect of the business. Then you have the back of the house manager who's running inventory, running a kitchen, running, food, all that sort of stuff. And it's done really well for them. It's funny to see you guys do the exact same thing without even talking about it.
Well, we've been, so blessed to be under the hood of so many different businesses, from mom and pops to, bigger types of companies and tons of industries, not just coffee, not just the bar industry. But one of our other clients, Human Bean Reno, did something similar. It's a great branch of the Human Bean locations. I think I've been to lots of Human Beans, and I enjoy the Reno franchise more than others. And I'm biased probably because we worked with them for a long time. But they did something similar too. And I was able to kind of watch the effect. It was a while ago. So they have one manager for two locations. But they have a plethora of baristas, which is not something that we quite have down there in Belize yet. But we're able to kind of watch the effect downstream of something like that. What types of things fall through the cracks? What types of things do the assistant managers at both locations now, what are they in charge of? So just our exposure, I think, over so many years and so many businesses has helped us to be a little bit more flexible in our thinking and triaging certain problems. While I'd love to stick to a more traditional version of how to run a business, you got a manager, you got an assistant, you got a shift lead, and you have your baristas for that location, things change, and I think it might even be more beneficial to have teams that are intermixed. I remembered at Roasters back in the day, we'd have company events and each store would be kind of isolated. We didn't know each other. We didn't have like a cultural cohesion between each, in between all the stores. We didn't even know everybody's names. And I think as things progressed, we did kind of have more a mixed bag of who worked where, just because we finally kind of were allowing that and supporting it. And the culture did shift in a way that was really healthy, I think, for everybody on the barista side of things. And so I'm hoping, these kids kind of all know each other because the island's small, but I'm hoping that giving them the ability to work with everyone at both stores. I'm excited to kind of see what that brings to our culture there.
I mean, and it just, like we saw at Roasters, it just makes it that much smoother when you do have to bring a barista from another location to somewhere else. There's not that whole like, okay, I got to get used to where everything is on the bar. I have to, because you might have the exact same blueprint of a shop for all of your locations, but every manager, every barista is going to put strawberry here and raspberry there, or vanilla here, hazelnut there. So it gets, you have to get used to it. So if you can get your employees moving around, they can get used to these other shops. So if you have like a grand opening or somebody calls out sick, you need to pull one over. It's much easier for them to be effective on bar really quickly versus like having to spend the first hour and a half just getting used to where everything is located.
And I think too, I mean, I will say this, not only has it done cohesion, it's brought greater cohesion for the team there and better, I think it's going to create better flows overall. But I think also it also allowed us to identify, okay, so what are some of the things that we could pull off of the managers that are there and elevate up to other places. So I know Drew did a ton of interviews last week, and I know Faith on our team, like, was the one that posted the job posting and dropped it in a couple boards and harvested those leads and took first draw at like who Drew should elevate to, and then helped coordinate those interviews with Drew for Drew, and so that way it took all of that lift off of two managers that were really feeling some heaviness. And I think that when you can create lanes and you can assign things out to people, then the beauty is you can actually pick and choose the things that you can still do, even though Drew is, like at quickest 8 hours away. The Drew can't get down there fast, but what he can do is jump on a couple of WhatsApp calls, vet the people the way that he wants, and then give good references to the managers down there of who they should spend time interviewing and hiring in. And I think it led to some great stuff. I think we were able to hire 2 or 3 people in just a very short amount of time because Drew was able to vet them, push them across, spot checked them with the managers that were down there. Yep, they felt good. Great, let's push them through. Let's get them training. And I think it was able to bring us back up. So I think it created a spot where we're sharing the load across managers, sharing the load across teams, and then you can kind of sharpshoot, okay, where do I intersect? Where do I meet the need? Instead of just like, I think a lot of owners revert back to their own management days and they're just like, get out of the way. I just need to get in there and just take control. And then what you do is you render the rest of your team unable to help because you had to be in control, grab the reins instead of just trusting, no, you know what? I'm going to let them play to their strengths. I'm going to sharpshoot spots where I can get involved and not stop all over the field. And then hopefully create some better harmony amongst the teams.
Love it.
All righty, boys. Well, I think that wraps it up for our troubleshooting Belize last week. And how do you run a business remotely? Coffee experts, I hope you enjoyed that. And man, shoot us a message on socials. Tell us about your story. We'd love to maybe interview you. We'd love to talk to you about things that you're going through, talk to you about things that you face. I think it's always inspiring when you can hear from other business owners who are facing things, and we can talk through strengths, weaknesses. What have you learned? What could you grow from? And then hopefully other listeners can see themselves in their shoes. Gentlemen, been excellent. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. So I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. And I hope our listeners as well have an incredible Thanksgiving.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Yeah.